reality. I've got two different views up here on the board, atheism and the Bible. I'm a Christian and I believe the Bible. I believe that the Bible makes sense of reality. Does everyone know what the Bible is? The Bible is a book, it's a collection of 66 books. I believe that the Bible tells me what I need to know to make sense of reality. Anyone know what atheism is? Anyone know what atheism is? Atheism is basically saying no God. Okay, in short, no God. Mostly atheists would be materialistic, so I believe what I see, what I can touch, what I can taste, and so on. Which of these makes sense? Does atheism make sense? Does the Bible make sense? What do you think? Okay, what do you think? What do you think, sir? Atheism or the Bible? You don't know, okay? Do you want to stay and find out? Anyone got any view on this? Atheism or the Bible? What do you think, though? No idea? Okay. You can stay and find out too if you like. Which of these makes sense? What do you think, sir? None of them. What do you think makes sense then? Okay, if you've got another viewpoint we can stick up there, we can do that. But the reason I've got these two is because I believe the Bible. I believe the Bible makes sense of the world that we live in. It helps me understand what reality really is when I read the Bible. And a lot of people I meet with say, well, I'm an atheist, okay? I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God, and I believe that makes sense. So which of these two makes sense? The first question I want to ask is this. Which of these makes sense of science? Atheism or the Bible? Now what is science? What's science? Can anyone tell me that? Anyone tell me what science is? What's science?
Study of the natural world.
Study of the natural world, okay. So we look at the world around us, and what do we do is we look at the world. Okay, how do we study it? Anyone do this? Any scientists here? Anyone do science? No? No scientists are near me anywhere? What do scientists do? They look at the world around us, and they see repeatable patterns, don't they? Okay, so science is looking at the world and understanding the patterns that we have in the world and creating a framework to understand that. Okay, so we have laws of science which tell us how the world functions. Now, does atheism make sense of science? Now I'm not saying, okay, that atheists can't be scientists. You may know atheists who are scientists. I'm not saying atheists can't be scientists, but what I'm saying is this, that atheism doesn't make sense of science. Do you agree with that, sir? Do you think atheism makes sense of science?
No.
You don't know, okay? Well, I want to say it doesn't make sense of science. And the reason is this. When I look at the world around me, what I see is a world which is ordered, okay? Sorry, did someone say something? Well, what I see is a world that's ordered, okay? Which has structure, and which has repeatability. Okay, without that I can't do science. Okay, science depends on the fact that I drop this, oops, it keeps on falling, Okay, there's a law of gravity, and I know that I'll do the same thing tomorrow, and the same thing will happen. Science depends on repeatable experiments, doesn't it? Now, if you're an atheist, I want you to tell me how you can know that your experiment is going to be repeatable. Okay, if all that we have is a collection of atoms, never mind where they came from, that's enough of a problem. All we have is a collection of atoms that happened by random chance. How can we know that this is a universe where things are repeatable and where science is going to work? Okay?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go on.
Do you believe in the ark?
I believe in the ark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe in the ark, because the ark is mentioned in the Bible.
Right, okay.
I believe everything the Bible
tells
me.
So you believe that 1% of the whole population of animals within the whole world was put on a boat, yeah? All the animals in the world, 2 by 2, yeah? Insects, lions, cats, dogs, they didn't eat each other.
Lots of animals on boats.
They didn't eat each other. You got 1%, right? 1% of every animal that ever exists now.
I don't know about
so at the time, 1% of every animal that ever exists then. How did you get all of those animals onto a boat without them all eating each other? And if there was a finite amount of space with all those animals,
okay, finite amount of space.
You're talking about science, yeah? You're talking about science, and how does science come into the ark?
Good question, okay, good question. What about the ark? Okay, so you go back 4,000, 5,000 years, and the Bible tells us that there was a boat, a big boat, a very big boat, and on that boat, God arranged for Noah to put a selection of animals that would keep those animals going.
So how do all of the animals? So how do all the other animals that exist now? that didn't make it onto the boat exist. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
so
I'm
how do all the
understand.
animals that we have today exist? Now, God doesn't say, okay, to Noah, take every single animal. He says take breeding pairs of animals, okay? So pairs of animals. And there doesn't need to be full-size animals, they can be young animals.
So surely all the animals would have got wiped out? All the other animals would have got wiped out?
So God told Noah, take every kind of animal onto the ark, okay, every kind. Now, obviously you have different varieties of animals within kinds, don't you? You have lots of different types of dog, but Noah could just have 2 dogs on that ark, okay? And all those other dogs have descended from those 2 dogs. So Noah has a selection of animals on that ark, and God keeps them safe. Now that makes sense to me. If you're going to have a worldwide flood, a pretty good way of keeping the animals safe is to take breeding pairs onto an ark, keep them safe there, release them when you get off, and hey presto, you've got a world full of animals.
That makes more sense to you than the repeating patterns of science, though.
No, that makes sense because of the repeating patterns of science. What I'm saying is this, that for an atheist, if you don't believe that there's a God who rules over everything, and who created everything, and who is predictable because he doesn't change, how can you be sure that science is going to make sense? If all that happened is someone went bang, loads of things bumped into each other, how do you get repeating laws of science from that?
Science theories are proven right or proven wrong, right? So, and there's many theories regarding many different instances.
Yep.
It's the same with religion. So there have been thousands of gods over the past however many years. Why is your God the right God? Why are you stood here telling me to believe in your God when all of these other thousands of gods could well be, carrying a better message or...
Okay. Very, very good question over here. Did everyone hear that? Okay, we're saying why am I looking at the Bible? Okay, the Bible tells me about a God.
Which has been rewritten how many times? How many times has the Bible been rewritten over the course of history?
It's been rewritten by a number of different
It's been rewritten by like 42 different kings at least.
No, that's
to fit in with Catholicism.
No, you've got mixed up, mate. Okay, you've got a bit mixed up. There's 66 books in the Bible written by different authors. But why that God and not any other? Well, the reason is this, okay? Because I believe that the Bible makes sense of reality. When I read the Bible, I see an account which makes sense because it tells me not just there's a God out there somewhere, but it tells me that there's a God who is a God who loves wisdom and order, and who's a God who doesn't change, who's a God who made everything, and who made everything to function with order. And so when I look at the world around me, and I use science, I say, hey, this fits, this makes sense, because the Bible tells me that this world was created by a God who loves that kind of thing, by a God who loves order and structure. And so the Bible makes sense of science. It tells us right at the beginning of the Bible, you open up the Bible first page, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We know where it came from. It explains how God put the structure into it, how he separates the land from the sea, how he creates trees and plants to reproduce after their kind, how he creates animals to reproduce after their kind, and people to reproduce after their kind.
And he created free will. Mention that.
He created people, yeah? I'm just coming on to that one.
Free will, yeah.
I'm just coming on to people.
Not what the Bible said, okay? That.
So atheism, I think, doesn't make sense of science because it doesn't give me a foundation for believing that this world has repeatable patterns. Okay, I can't trust my science tomorrow if I'm an atheist. There's lots of great atheist scientists, but effectively they're having to live as if my God is true. That's what they're having to do. An atheist scientist has to borrow my God to do his science. That's what I'm saying. Okay? You see what I'm getting at? Unless you know that the one who rules over this universe is one who doesn't change and who loves repeatable order and structure, how can you believe in science? Atheism makes nonsense of science, but the Bible makes sense of science. Now the second thing I want to look at is this, okay? Yeah, does that make sense, sir? Does that make sense so far? You following along?
Yeah,
does that make sense so far? Okay? Everyone getting the point? Right.
Can you answer?
Yes, okay. Good question. Ladies went to, is this related to the question, sir? Okay. I'll come to it later then if you don't mind. I would just like to talk about this one first. just very quick then.
They went on this particular Sunday.
Yep.
The women, children,
Yep, they went to church.
and it was blown up.
Okay.
And they was all killed. And I said, when is God going to do something?
Okay, it's a good question, okay? You hear about people who
But there is
suffer.
no God, is there?
Well, I'm saying there is a God because I believe the Bible.
Why isn't he doing something?
I will come on to that one,
Why
okay?
are all the killings going on?
That's a very good question, okay? This gentleman says, why do all these killings go on? And you were mentioning this case of women and children who went into a church and someone blew that church up. I'm going to come to that point at the end of my talk. I'm just going to talk first of all about logic, okay? I'll come on to your point, sir.
Sorry, can I dive in there? You're talking about logic. You're not showing any.
Well, let me show you some logic,
No.
okay? My point here.
What second? So you just said against
Just
this
explain.
gentleman's question,
Yeah.
it was because you believe in the Bible,
Oh,
not
no.
because there's any physical proof.
No, okay, so let me just explain. So I believe the Bible because the Bible makes sense of the world around me.
So you
Okay?
believe it because it makes sense to you. You're not showing any proof.
I just
of
went through that,
existence
sir,
of a
okay?
God.
So if you look at science, the world around you.
Yeah.
You know, what do you see? You see a world with order, with beauty,
Really?
with
Order?
life in it, yeah? You look at atom, okay? Look
I
at a
see
tiny
chaos,
atom.
I see death, I see destruction. Where is your God right now?
Look at a tiny atom, sir, okay?
Look at
a tiny
the
atom.
children's hospitals in Syria that were being blanket bombed. Where was your God then?
Start with this, sir, okay?
Okay,
Look at,
cancer, where is your God?
start with this. Look at a tiny
Leukemia,
atom.
where is your God?
Start with this. Look at a tiny atom.
Science,
And you can
not
see there.
God. Yep.
Look at science.
Yep.
I'll come on to the moral question because that is very important. And I really want to deal with that. But look at science,
Yep.
okay? Look at the structure in a tiny atom, in a tiny molecule.
Yep.
Look at the structure in your bodies. The structure there shows that we've been designed by someone who loves order and structure. Okay?
Right, it doesn't show a design, does it?
It does show a design.
How does it show a design?
Have you ever looked at a car?
I'm very
sir?
well read, be
You've looked at a
careful,
car.
choose your words wisely.
You've looked at a car, okay?
Yes.
And you looked at a car and you can see how the bits interlock
So
and
you're
how
comparing
the
God
different
to a
parts
machine.
design. I'm not. I'm comparing you and me to a machine.
So, can you answer one question before I leave, just very patiently? If you take everything, I mean everything across the board, the whole globe, to do with religion, and I'm talking organised religion, I'm not talking
Okay.
spiritual
Okay.
science. Now, if you destroy all of that information, in 1,000 years' time, you will have, please excuse my word and choice of words, a bastardised version of religion from hearsay, from memory.
Certainly so.
If
Yeah.
you take everything, and I mean everything to do with science, and do the exact same, and you destroy all of that scientific knowledge, in 1,000 years' time, do you know what will happen?
You'll have that same knowledge
The
back again.
same science will exist because the same test will have proven science.
And that is
you will have no religion and no God.
And so that is exactly my point. My exact point is what this gentleman has just said. If you get rid of all science today, you burn all the science textbooks, in 1,000 years you can have exactly the same science. And that's because my God has created this world and he's created it to be
you're missing
predictable.
the point.
He's
It's
created it to be
2018, buddy.
predictable, okay? And my God has created this world to have order and structure so that as we look around us, we can see the laws of science in operation. This world is not an accident. That's my point. This world is not an accident. This world shows the hallmarks of the designer. Because you and I can see for ourselves, as we look at the science and the world around us, the laws and structures that God has put in place, we can see the amazing way that God has designed this. We can see that this world isn't some accident that's happened. We can see that this isn't something that just happened to come out of nothing, however many billions of years ago. And we can see that this orderly, structured world, governed by the laws of science, has been designed by the God of the Bible. Which brings me on to my second point about logic. I'll come to your question morally in a second, sir. But about logic, the guy here was saying I haven't shown much. Now my point is this, okay, he's probably much better read than I am, he may be much more logical than I am. My point isn't that atheists are illogical, but when an atheist is logical, an atheist is having to borrow my God to make sense of that. Because, just rewind a second and think about, what is reality if you're an atheist? If all you believe is matter in motion, Just the things you can see with your eyes, or feel with your hands, or see through a telescope, or view through a microscope. What is reality if that's all there is? All reality is little blobs moving around and hitting each other. Little quarks and electrons and stuff interacting at the microatomic level. If that's all that exists, then how does your thinking make sense? Just stop and think for a second. If your mind is just your brain, if your mind is just some glorified chemical reaction, what useful stuff can your mind ever tell you? Okay? If all that goes on when I think is some chemical reaction, which was caused by another chemical reaction, which was caused by another one, which maybe was caused by a Big Bang, what use is my mind? Now, atheism makes nonsense of rationality. Atheism makes nonsense of rationality because it claims that rationality is the same thing as matter. Okay, that matter causes rationality. Now, atoms moving around randomly cannot cause rationality. In that case, your rationality is just random, okay? Your rationality is random. You think you're thinking, but you're not thinking. All that's happening is a chemical reaction. Atheism makes nonsense of logic, and it provides no way of understanding how there can be laws of logic. When we think logically, we think according to certain laws, don't we? There are rules. You don't contradict yourself. I can't say that the Bible's true because I said so. That's a logical fallacy. When we think logically, we follow certain laws. And those laws aren't engraven somewhere in a stone by some atom. If you're an atheist, there's no basis for laws of logic. But I believe in the Bible. I believe in a God who is logical, a God who is wise, who has wisdom as one of his chief characteristics.
Why did God do something when them people were killed?
I'm coming to that in a second, sir.
No, you've just got
I'm coming to that I'm coming to that in 1 second, sir.
No, you've got this knowledge and you just keep
I don't
on
want to interrupt, sir, okay? But I will come on to that. I'm very keen to deal with that question. I'm very keen to deal with your question. If you could just wait patiently 1 second, I just want to deal with this point here first. I just want to deal with this point here first, sir, for the people who are listening. Okay? My point is this, that the Bible makes sense of logic and rationality, because it tells me that I am made in the image of God, that God has designed me in such a way that I can relate to God, and in such a way that I'm a bit like God, because I can think rationally. I'm not just a bunch of molecules that bump into each other. The Bible tells me that I'm a human being made in God's image, and so able to think rationally. Does that make sense, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're made in God's image, and if God is a rational God, then that means that we can be rational. Now if I'm coming from an atheist perspective, I'd have to say that all that's going on is somewhere in my brain, an atom is another atom, and it's just some chemical reaction. That's not rationality. Now, I'm going to come on to the question that this gentleman's been asking here, which is really to do with the moral issue, okay? Which of these makes sense of morals? Now, he was telling me a story he saw on the news, I think, a couple of years ago, about women and children who went into a church somewhere in the Middle East, and that church was blown up. And he said, where was God when that happened? So how could God let that sort of thing happen in the world that we live in? Because you and I know that's wrong, don't we? We know it's wrong to blow up any kind of building or any kind of place filled with people, much less women and children. It's horrific. It's horrific. Now, from an atheist perspective, the big problem is this. You've got no basis for talking about right and wrong. From my position in the Bible, I would say that is definitely wrong because God has given us definite laws. God says that you shall not kill, and God shows us that is horrific in His sight. From an atheist perspective, you've got no way of saying that, and also you've got no answer. So I'll just say to the atheists here, if there are any atheists listening, how could you answer that question? What's going on when a bomb blows up in a room full of women and children? All that happens is a few atoms get rearranged. How horrific. But the Bible gives us that answer. The Bible gives us the answer to the moral question you raised. Let me just come to the answer. I haven't given the answer yet. You have another question?
Take consideration.
Yep.
Because them women and children were in God's house.
Okay, so these women and children, they were in a church, okay, and someone came and blew them up. Now, how does that make sense? Now, the Bible tells me a story which makes sense of the world that we live in. The Bible tells me that we live in a world that God created to be good, okay? God created a world to be very good, and that God looked at the world after he spent 7 days creating it, and he said, that is very good. Well, 6 days, okay, after he spent 6 days creating, he said, that's very good, before he rested on the 7th day. God said, that is very good. But then he said, right now, I've created people, okay? And I've given those people rationality. I've created those people so they can know me and love me and interact with me. And I've given those people one rule which they need to keep. One rule to show that they love God and that they care about Him. And those people completely ignored the rule that God gave them, and they went and did their own thing. Now, God had warned people. He'd warned Adam and Eve right back there in the beginning, and he said to them, if you disobey me, if you choose to go your own way, then you're choosing death instead of life. God always does this. He says, here is life and here is death to the human race. He says, which way are you choosing to go? And right from that moment, disaster and death started happening to the whole of humanity. Adam's and Eve's sons started fighting each other, one killed another. Disaster and death comes from sin, because sin is saying to God, I don't want you in my world, I want to go my way because I want this world for me, the world that God's created. And so dreadful things happen, okay? Like this man was saying earlier, he's gone off somewhere now. Women and children suffer and die. Even women and children who love God suffer and die. Dreadful things happen in the world in which we live. Now, atheism has no answer to the moral problem in the world today. But the Bible has the answer to the moral problem in the world today. The Bible tells me this, okay? The Bible says that God has dealt with sin, that God has provided an answer to sin. That for people like you and me who disobey God, who are on that rebellious trajectory with the rest of mankind, God provided the answer by coming into this world in the person of Jesus Christ and himself suffering and himself dying to take the punishment that you and I deserve. That's the first part of the answer. But then the second part of the answer is this. That God says he's appointed a day when he will judge the world in righteousness by the man whom he has appointed. And he's given proof to us of this by raising him from the dead. That Jesus Christ is the Saviour, but Jesus Christ will also be the judge. And that God has a day in which he will judge this world and put all the bad things right. Okay, you may say, well, why doesn't God put bad things right? The answer is God is going to do that. And in the meantime, God is patient, even with people who hate him, even with people who hate his people, even with people who throw bombs into churches. God is very patient with each one of us, even with people who lie to their wives, even with people who hurt their children, even with people who disobey their parents. God is very patient with us. God is patient with us so that we can repent and turn to him. And it's all very well looking at this, isn't it, and saying atheism or the Bible. I think we've looked at this today and shown conclusively that atheism is a load of rubbish. Okay, not to mince my words too much. Atheism is a load of rubbish. It can't explain what the world is today. It can't explain how we can think. It can't explain who you are. It can't explain how morals work. It can't explain the answer to the moral problem in the world today. But the big thing is to know what that answer is. That the answer is in the power of Jesus Christ, gone to the cross and died on that cross for my sin. The reason I'm standing here today is because I know I'm a sinner. I know I've done what's wrong. I know that I've lied. I know that I've hurt others. I know I've treated others unfairly. But I know this as well, just as surely, that Jesus Christ died to take all of that from me. That Jesus Christ died to give me real life with God forever. That Jesus Christ died so that I can know I'm forgiven. Jesus Christ died to deal with the moral problem, starting with me and you and each one of us who will trust in him. And God doesn't say, join a religion. God doesn't say, try harder, pull your socks up. God says this, he says, trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. Stop depending on yourself. Depend on Him, because He's the one who is dependable. Depend on Him. His word is dependable. He is dependable. And you can trust Him, through time and into eternity. You can trust Him through life and through death. Jesus Christ is the one you can trust. He is the one you can depend on, and He is the only one who provides us with the answer. Not only the understanding of the world we live in, but the answer that each one of us needs to our own hearts and to the moral problem of the world around us. I'd love to give you one of these if you're listening. This is simply part of the Bible. We've been talking about the Bible, how the Bible makes sense. If you're thinking, well, I'm not sure it makes sense, take it and try it. Suck it and see. This is part of the Bible, and it tells us about Jesus. It tells us how He lived. It tells us how He died. It tells us how He rose again from the dead, and it's written by a man who saw all of this. Okay, he saw the whole thing. It's a book that makes sense. It's a book that will help you to make sense of the world that you live in. It's a book that will make sense of your life, and it's the only book that can give you a hope for the future, through life and death and beyond. Do take one from me or from our bookstall over there. It's been great to talk to you today. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a good day in Bournemouth. Hand over to someone else in a moment, but thanks for stopping and listening. It's been great to talk to you.